So. I might hold on to this because people keep coming up here.
That's perfectly fine. You want to do that, and then I'm going to start. I'm going to play the 148. Just put it in the air.
Shabbat Shalom. Ah, you're already here. Okay. Well, we have a couple things going on, but we'll. It's nice to be with all of you here tonight. Celebrate Shabbat. Welcome some old friends. Not that old. Rabbis Pine and Bush are here. We'll begin our service on page 11 with Ki Eshmeira Shabbat. And now it is my pleasure to invite Terry Sterrett to the Bima, President of Sisterhood, and in honor of her newest grandchild, her granddaughter, Elliot Jane. Page 2. Amen. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom and Mazel Tov. Shabbat Shalom, Mazel Tov. Page 24, we welcome in our Shabbat angels, messengers of peace. Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bo'achem leShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzidchem leShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We turn to page 12 for Kabbalat Shabbat, the first psalm of Kabbalat Shabbat. On page 12, Lechu Neranana from Psalm 95.
Nechu neranena, from Psalm 98 on page 16. Zamru Ladonai. Ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, Zamru Ladonai. Zamru Ladonai bechinor. Zamru Ladonai bechinor bekol zimra. Yai lai la lai, yai ya la la lai, ya la la, ya la 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 lai, yai ya la la lai, ya la la, ya la 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 lai, yai ya la la lai, Zamru Ladonai. Zamru Ladonai bechinor. Zamru Ladonai bechinor bekol zimra.
And now we turn to page 20, Lecha Dodi, and welcome in Shabbat presence. We'll be singing paragraphs 1, 2, 5, and 9. When we get to the last paragraph, we'll rise to greet Shabbat through the door, and then we'll have an opportunity to greet one another as well.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה. מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך ומאורי, אורי אורי שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובתחולה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת נקבלה.
Let's take a couple minutes to wish one another Shabbat Shalom. I like that one.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. You could unmute if you wanted to. Thank you for joining us tonight. Good to see
Shabbat
you.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm back.
Hope everyone has a wonderful 4th of July holiday, too.
Shalom.
You too. Thank you. Beautiful day today.
Yeah, it's going to be a nice weekend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice break in the temperature here in Pittsburgh, too.
Quite pleasant.
I'll take it.
Okay, so I think we're getting back to our regularly programmed schedule. So.
Let's go.
Okay. Well, let's see. Well, that's...
נבל עלי היגיון וכינור מזמור שיר ליום השבת טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון ולזמר לשמך עליון כי שימחתני אדוני בפועלך במעשה ידיך ארנן מה גדול מעשיך אדוני מאוד עמקו מחשבותיך מזמור שיר ליום השבת טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון ולזמר לשמך עליון ולזמר לשמך עליון ולזמר לשמך עליון.
We continue on page 26 with Chetzi Kaddish. We make our separation between Kabbalat Shabbat and the rest of the evening service.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה ילמד יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון ויומכון ובחיי זכל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמירה במברך מעולם ולעולם מעולמיה יתברך וישתבח יתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשו לריחו נעלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושלכתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן.
Please rise in body or spirit for Baruch.
המבורך, ברוך אדוני המבורך, לעולם ועד. ברוך אדוני המבורך, לעולם ועד.
Page 30. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidbaro ma'ariv aravim, v'chochma potech she'arim, v'biguna mishana itim, v'chalif et hazmanim, v'misader et hakoharim, v'mishmorotehem barakia kertonam, v'orei yom v'layla, v'lel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or.
ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה. אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים. תמיד ימלוך עלינו, לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב ערבים. אהבת עולם בישראל, עמך עמך תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת, על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו, וקומנו נשיח בחוקיך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד, כי הם חיינו לאורך ימינו, ובהם נגה יומם ולילה, נגה יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
You may be seated, and we continue on page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי הייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמן.
On page 39. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth.
The
The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. Michamocha, on the next page.
מי כמוך באל אדוני, מי כמוך נטע בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא, נורא תהילות עושה פלא, מלכותך ראו בניך בוקר יום לפני משה ומרים, צליאנו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך, לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. Page 42, Hashkivenu, our people's nighttime prayer. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu, leshalom, vehamidinu, shomrenu, shomrenu, lechaim. ופרוס עלינו סוכות שלומך, ותגננו בעצה טובה מלפניך. למען שמך. ברוך אתה, אתה אדוני הפורס סוכת שלום. שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל. ועל ירושלים ועל כל עמו. ועל ירושלים שלום. ועל ירושלים ועל כל עמו. ועל ירושלים שלום. ברוך אתה, אתה אדוני הפורס סוכת שלום. שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל.
And on the next page, 44, Vishamru, the people of Israel shall keep Shabbat.
Shabbat vayinafash v'shameru b'nei Yisrael et haShabbat la'asot et haShabbat לדורותם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת.
Continue with the tefillah now. Begins with an opening meditation, page 46, and we continue on the even pages. Again, please rise in body or spirit.
Adonai, Simbatai Tivka, Ufi Agit Teilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, and my mouth will declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני בחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו, אישיני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמנת על החיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
You may be seated. This is for listening.
Create a pure heart in me, great spirit. Create a pure heart in me. Create a pure heart in me, great spirit.
continue with our own silent prayer.
Adonai Tzuri, Adonai Tzuri, Begoali, Begoali.
Continue now on page 253 with Misha Barak for healing. Take a moment to think about those in our lives, those in our neighbors' lives, as well as those we don't know who are on the Shabbat, in need of healing of body, healing of spirit. I'll read from this list, and then if you have any names you'd like to add on, please do. And then we'll sing together Misha Barak. We hold in our hearts on the Shabbat Mark Altmeyer, Ira Altschuler, Dale Anderson, Miriam Barrow, Ann Barber, Frank Carl, Lou Salenzi, Hinda Sarabat Hannah Pearl, Shannon Fisk, Kathy James, Mary Litzel, Bill Rakoff, Tom Reich, Drew Tomasi, Joan Wolf Woolley, and Doreen Zisla. Others from Misha Barak? Any names on here? Continue together, Misha Barak for healing, middle of the page.
Be the source of strength to bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage, make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
So this week's Torah portion is Pinchas. It actually began last week at the end of the portion where the person named Pinchas acted in zealous fervor to stop a act of idolatry, licentious behavior, and then continued in this week's portion with God responding to that act of zealousness or zealotry, and creating with Pinchas something called a Brit Shalom, a covenant of peace. And then and that's a whole subject in and of itself. And then the Torah portion turns to a census, a very long counting of the people of Israel. And what I want to talk about is what happens right after that. So the census, the way it's created, it's the purpose of it and the way it's created are for the inheritance of land. And so we know that in biblical times, women didn't inherit land, the men did. And then a question arises in the community: what would happen if there was a person, a man without sons? What would happen? And so sort of a test case arises, and the daughters of Zelophehad, there's 5 of them, whose names are given, which is unusual. Not all women's names are given in the Torah, and their names are Machlal, Noah, Hogla, Milcah, and Tirzah. These 5 women come forward, which is in itself a big thing. They come forward, they step up. They go out of their tents. They go to the place where the highest ranking men are, where they're congregating, right, near the tablets from Sinai. Those tablets are resting in the ark. They go right up to this place of power, a place where women, and frankly not all men, but for sure women, have no authority. And they go there and they speak with determination, and they say, "Our father died in the wilderness," and they say he was not one of the faction, Korach's faction, if you remember from some weeks ago, which banded together against the Lord, but died for his own whatever human sin, and he has left no sons. Let not our father's name be lost to his clan just because he had no son. Give us a holding among our father's kinsmen. Now, I actually think that's really interesting, right? Because a lot of times we read about a place, especially in the Torah, where women don't have the same access to whatever it is, tradition or land or whatever it is, and that's just the way it is. I mean, I can remember in my own life where things were just explained to me like that's just the way it is, and I was like, okay, I don't know, that's just the way it is, and I never asked anything. That was a while ago, but when I was younger, I never asked. But these women asked. They came up front and they took a step forward and they say, wait a minute. Our father had no sons. We don't want his name to be lost. What's going to happen? And so Moses says, well, let me check with God. And there are some commentators who believe that Moses knew the right answer, but he kind of needed, someone higher in authority to give approval. But God says, right, they're right. They're right. They're absolutely right. You should give them a hereditary holding. Now, it's not perfect. There are some stipulations, but it's a first step. Yes, you're right. You should have a hereditary holding, and they forever changed the laws of inheritance. A couple things about this: the women, they knew their history, they knew the law, and they knew that they were right. And when they stepped up with confidence, God said, "You're right." So I'm thinking about July 4th, and I'm thinking about what it means to be celebrating July 4th this year. Last year, July 4th was pretty tame, I guess, pretty quiet. Not very many people were out celebrating July 4th. And so this year it's different because we have a little bit more freedom to celebrate our freedom, and we can get out, we can move about, and we can celebrate our independence more. And I guess I wanted to, and also last year, or this year rather, this past June, we observed our country for the first time, and I spoke about this a few weeks ago. Juneteenth. What does it mean that our country now has a national holiday of Juneteenth, which actually celebrates or commemorates the time when the slaves knew that they were freed. It actually happened quite a long time after they were freed, but it happened on June 15th. And so I'm thinking about those two things, the fact that we have Juneteenth, that we have that we're out and be able to celebrate July 4th a little bit this year. And I'm also thinking about the Daughters of Salafkad. So I was thinking about the fact that the Daughters of Salafkad stood up. They took a step towards making women's rights, right? It's not done. And so I wanted to think about July 4th in that way, because we'll remember that in 1776, our newly independent nation was free from the tyranny of the British, but we still held hundreds of thousands of African Americans in captivity. So it wasn't an independence for everybody. It took until the 13th Amendment to ultimately provide freedom for all enslaved African Americans and to bring the nation out of the bondage of slavery. So knowing that we did end slavery and knowing that our nation is capable of change, I thought it would be interesting for us to consider for a moment what it meant for Black people on that first July 4th. And so, well, it's not the first one, but I have the words of Frederick Douglass, who spoke in 1852. Frederick Douglass was an abolitionist, a former slave, and he gave an address in 1852, and his text is called "What to the Slave is the 4th of July?" And in this speech, Douglass acknowledged the founding fathers of America, the architects of the Declaration of Independence, for their commitment to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But as he does that, he brings awareness to the problems, he would say the hypocrisy of their ideals, by the existence of slavery on American soil. He continues to interrogate the meaning of the Declaration of Independence to enslaved African Americans, and this is what he says. Fellow citizens, pardon me, allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I or those I represent to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? And am I therefore called upon to bring our humble offering to the national altar and to confess the benefits and express devout gratitude for the blessings resulting from your independence to us? Would to God, both for your sakes and ours, that an affirmative answer could be truthfully returned to these questions. Then would my task be light and my burden easy and delightful. For who is there so cold that a nation's sympathy could not warm him? Who so obdurate and dead to the claims of gratitude? They would not thankfully acknowledge such priceless benefits. Who so stolid and selfish that would not give his voice to swell the hallelujahs of a nation's jubilee when the chains of servitude have been torn from his limbs? I am not that man. I say it with a sad sense of the disparity between us. I am not included within the pale of glorious anniversary. He continues, and this is the last paragraph. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The blessings in which you this day rejoice are not enjoyed in common. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not by me. The sunlight that brought light and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn. So, right, I mean, we have made a lot of progress. We have a lot of work to do. I mean, last summer, in addition to not being able to celebrate the 4th of July because of COVID, we're also in the midst of a summer of protests and a summer of pain and anguish following the death of George Floyd. And, you know, it's a step in the right direction that George Floyd's murderer was named as such, and there is a lot of progress, and there's still more work to do, even as there's more work to do towards women's rights, which is why I think there's such an interesting parallel between Zalafkad's daughters this week and then July 4th. But I'd like to end with Daughters of Slachat, and I'd like to end with a teaching by a woman named Sylvinia. I think it might be Chemen, but it could be Chemen, who says, perhaps the most important legacy of Zalachat's daughters is their call to us to take a hold of life with our own hands. I love that. Take hold of life with our own hands, to move from the place that the others have given us, and to walk even to the most holy center, to where nobody else seems to be able to go. The daughters inspire us to discover that we too have the ability to know what is right for ourselves and what our rights ought to be. When we believe in our capacity to shape our history to the point of being able to change even a law that came from the revelation at Sinai as in those laws of inheritance, then we pay a tribute to Zalachat's daughter. So on this July 4th holiday, may I invite you, all of us, to take hold of life with our own hands, to move from the place we are to the place that we can be. Shabbat Shalom. Continue, it says anthem question mark. We continue with Aleinu, page 282. Again, please rise in body or spirit.
עלינו לשבח אדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו בהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטש שמיים ויוסר ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת דרכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום, והשיבות אל לבבך. כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Please remain standing. Continue on page 294 with, or I should say Kaddish is on page 294. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and all of those whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us: Ruth Oringer Frank, Lou Israel, Cy Loff, Laura Sparks, Adeline Tabor, as well as those who died at this season in years past. We remember those whose yahrzeit was observed in this week: Daniel M. Berger, William Freiberg, Irving Galanter, Maisie Greenwald, Bluma Bat Levi Yitzchak, Renee Kramer, Rose Krasnopoler, Jacob Levin, Helen Markowski, Frida Massoff, Beatrice Pollack, Hai Pover, David Rive, Irene Ribsky, Carl Shallett, Herman Smizik, Mariana Spector, Joy Weber, Marilyn Weisenbaum, June Whitehill Dukart. Other names? Go ahead. Go ahead. Zichronam livracha, may all their memories be for blessing. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah.
Amen.
V'yamad divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chaychon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Agalau v'zman kariv v'imru amen.
Amen.
Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam olmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. Vita dar, vita lev, vita lal, shmei de kudasha, brirku. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, damiran v'alma v'imru amen.
Amen.
Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom b'mermav, huya oseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen.
Amen.
You may be seated.
Oseh shalom bimroma, uyaseh shalom, alinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru amen.
Anne Claire. Anne Claire is a member of the board. She brings greetings.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I'm so happy to greet you here in person as well as you at home with a hearty Shabbat Shalom and a big thank you from the Board of Trustees for the beautiful service this evening. Thank you for the moving music and the really thought-provoking message today about our origin stories, both here and there. So I wish you all a wonderful Shabbat and a beautiful weekend. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you. And, thank you, Anne Claire. Can I just point out that we have an adult bar mitzvah class of 11 students, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, is that right? Five here tonight. That's pretty good. We also have Rabbi Debbie Pine and Rabbi Andy Bush here, and we have Dr. Jacob. I don't want to leave out any rabbis.
Did we forget any rabbis?
Did I forget any rabbis? No.
Rabbi Bert might be online.
What?
Rabbi Schumann might be online.
We will conclude our service with Ein Keloheinu on page 322, and we'll follow that with Kiddush and Motzi.
Kiddush is on page 5. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu mitzvotav v'ratza banu, v'shabbat kodsho v'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lemaaseh bereshit, ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh, zecher litziat Mitzrayim, kivanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, ve'shabbat kodshecha, ve'ahava uvratzon ratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadish haShabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Please remember to take your books out into the hall, and Shabbat Shalom and happy 4th of July weekend.